All right.
You're up.
Okay, we're up and ready to go. Good morning, everyone. It's August 2nd. My goodness, this year is passing fast. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors meeting in order at this time. Well, wait a minute. Yeah. And ask Mr. Slay if he would mind doing the invocation.
Let's pray.
Thank you.
Father, this is the day that you have made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Father, thank you for the ability that we have to come together to assemble as a community, leaders, citizens, law enforcement, staff members, Lord, to come together to help to establish the best possible government situation for our county, to provide for our residents. What a privilege it is, Lord, to have all of us to be in charge of how we govern ourselves. Thank you for that privilege. Help us never to take it for granted. Lord, the freedoms that we enjoy have been bought with a high price. Father, the ultimate freedom, our freedom from sin and darkness and evil, Lord, was bought with the highest possible price. And it's His name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Public recognition. Comments? We don't have any, I don't guess.
Yes.
That's almost a first. Old business. I have a motion to approve old business.
Gentlemen, before we get a motion on the old business, can I get you guys to add the July 15 minutes to the old business section, please? So it would be a motion to add July
Okay.
15 approval of
Do I have
those
a motion
minutes.
to add July 15th? Motion by Brad, second by Steve. All in favor? All right.
And now a motion just to approve the minutes.
All right, motion, I have a motion to approve the minutes. Motion approved by Steve, second by, who was it? Second by Jay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, okay? Consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion approved by Daniel,
Second.
second by Jay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Now, Ms. Caroline Gilbert. Tax collector and tax assessor sitting side by side.
Okay, so I have request approval to void supplemental chargeback for PIN number 68413. There was a social security number entered in the system incorrectly, which resulted in this person receiving a chargeback. So we just need to void that as it is not theirs.
Motion. Second.
Motion approved by Steve, second by Jay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. John Sullivan. Good to see you, John.
Item A, petition to change the assessment 2020 real and personal property assessment.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Brad.
Second.
Second by Jay, excuse me, Steve.
Steve.
All in favor say aye. All opposed?
Item B, request to void the tax sale for PIN number 81649.
So moved.
Motion approved by Jay, second by Steve, Steve. All in favor say aye, aye, aye. All opposed?
And item C, acknowledge receipt of the objections for the 2021 tax assessments.
Motion.
Motion approved by Steve, second by
34.
Jay.
34.
Any discussion? Not all in favor say aye. All opposed? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Bridget.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our first item this morning, we have a bid opening for the term bid for construction of precast bridges. The first bid we received is from Key LLC. It was received electronically. It looks like it's in order. There's 107 items on there, so we're not going to read that out unless y'all want me to.
Yeah, please.
And the next bid is from Hemp Hill Construction. All items are in order. I request those be taken under advisement.
All right. Have a motion. Motion by Brad, second by Jay. All in favor say aye. All opposed?
Okay, my next items, we can take them as one vote, but the first sole source approval is for safe strengths for the RAP safety restraint system. It's for the Sheriff's Department. And the second item, sole source approval of Eltron Corporation for the OSCR 360 system for the Sheriff's Department.
I'll make a motion to approve B and C.
Second.
Motion approved by Brad, who was second by Steve. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mike Harrison.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Road work accomplished for July and road work scheduled for August.
Motion. I have a motion approved.
Motion approved.
Motion approved by Brad,
Second.
second by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed.
Y'all need me to read it out or?
Yeah, how many work orders you do this past month?
Let's,
Well, I mean, we did, all right, if we're gonna do it, we'll do it a little different. We did 6, barrels, 24 culverts, 32
oh,
ditches.
Mike, barrels of animals.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to clarify that. That would be kind of, somebody listening to the
This is
recording. go,
animal burial.
Yeah, that'd probably be good to point out.
That has bad excuses on it. 24 culverts, no, not 24, I'm sorry, be 124.
That's what
I
I
was
was
gonna say,
thinking.
I was going to say, you
24,
kind of slow this time, weren't you?
124, I left one off, I'm sorry. 32, ditch work orders, we did 60 tree limb pickups or cutting limbs work orders. Did 18 driveway aprons, 182 limb pickups. Did 22 school work orders, 169 road repairs, and 36 road construction. Now, road repairs is where we do a work order, go
Right.
repair on the road.
Right.
Road construction is work that we're doing on the road ourselves. It's two different things that we're doing. And it comes to a grand total, we spent $800,000 doing all that this month.
Hey, where are we on the, I mean, y'all may have talked about it, but on the, with the giraffe? The-
We've got it purchased, Jared,
Which one we wound up getting?
the older one.
Huh?
We got the older one, the '01 model.
Okay.
They was gonna put some hydraulic hoses and things, do a few maintenance,
Right.
run it through their shop and do a few things with it. We should be receiving it this week.
Good
They said
deal.
they should be through with it this week.
Good deal. All right, I'm just curious. All right. All right.
Let's see, I need to request approval for TEC of Jackson Utility permit to construct a fiber optic cable along and across Gooley Shiloh Road in between Walters Road and Rankin Road.
Okay.
Second with discussion. Can you ask them if they'll come look around, District 4 with some of that fiber?
Actually,
That is
talked to some of them the other day, and I mean,
It is.
they're working,
That's right.
they're working on trying to put a plan together to get into the
Right.
rural parts of the communities on it, Steve.
Yeah.
But it's taking a little time to get it together.
We've got, well, you know, just everybody has parts of their district that they just don't have reliable internet.
Yes, sir.
Yep. I live it just like you,
Yeah.
man.
Yep.
If it does come on, you gotta sit there, you can go make a sandwich before it ever pops up.
Whenever last year they were out of school, you know.
I know.
They couldn't hit the internet.
All right.
Right.
Hey, Mike, you might want to tell Steve those other roads that are involved, I did not list them all because it's on your sheet, do you have all the list of the other roads?
Yes, ma'am, but this,
All right, we gonna vote on it?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
do you need to add that? Say anything about that, Mike?
it's just some more roads. We
okay.
just did the main roads. I mean, there's a list of roads that are
Oh,
gonna be
okay.
out there just a little.
All right, I got a motion by Jay, second by, Steve. Any more discussion?
I
Not
just
all
put
in
the
favor, say
main
aye. All
traffic
opposed.
roads on there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tim Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item we have is Landry Landing. We're recommending approval of the construction drawings. That's a District 2 development off of Highway 43. It's a 28-lot subdivision, one road. That's a Scott May development.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Daniel,
Second.
second by Steve. Any discussion?
Yeah, we held this up the other day.
No, sir, we held up approval of a final plat on one of his developments that didn't have any, it had no construction to it, it was just lots along an existing road. We held it up till he got another development in order. This
That
one,
one's in order?
sir?
Is that other one in order?
It's not in order yet, but this one would just be approval of construction drawings, which so they can start construction, and we can hold it if you want to, but my thought was, this will be the first time out of the box if they have a chance to do what they're trying to retro do on the one that they're trying to finish up on 468. If that makes any sense.
They are working on 468.
All right.
We can't, okay, we can't hold up, keep holding up something for some others, but they're not even the same. I mean, that ain't, can't do that, can't keep doing that. But anyway, all right, a motion and a second. Let's see, a motion, who made the motion?
I did.
Oh, you made the
Motion
motion,
approved.
and Steve made the second.
Right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
The second item we have, Mr. President, is on the ERBRF program. We're recommending approval of the resolution to submit applications to the ERBRF program for Ehrlich Road Bridge and Midway Road Bridge. And Ehrlich Road Bridge, just in the resolution, is noted as structure SA 6113, Midway is SA 61202, and the resolution authorizes the preparation and submission of the applications, as well as authorizes the execution of any grants or other related documents required for the commencement of the project.
Motion.
Motion approved by Steve,
Second.
second by Brad. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Thank you.
Okay. Clerk Slay.
Good morning, gentlemen. The first item under my section is a public hearing on Rankin County's initiated rezoning at Old Pearson Road and Peggy Drive in District 1. The county is initiating a zoning change from mobile home park to RE1 for 19 parcels located on Old Pearson Road and Peggy Drive. These parcels are located north and east of the Old Pearson Road Mobile Home Park. The manufactured home park is located on a 5.50 acre parcel. It's zoned MHP and will remain MHP. The 19 parcels are owned by individuals with a mixed manufactured home and site-built home presentation. America's Home Place submitted an application for construction of a site-built home on one of the parcels. MHP zoning regulations do not allow site-built homes. The property was posted, notice of the hearing was published in the paper, and property owners of the 19 parcels, as well as property owners within 160 feet, were notified by certified mail. One of the property owners came to the office and stated that she is opposed to the rezoning because she owns rental manufactured homes. She wants to be able to replace them with newer models in the future. That public hearing is open. I will ask at this time for anyone that is here to speak in opposition to the county's initiated rezoning request to step forward, give your name and address, and address the board. Anyone here to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am. You'll come forward, please. Yes, ma'am. You need to come forward,
come
give
up,
your
please.
name and address, and address the board, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mary Hart. I actually have owned this property over 42 years. I'm a retired state employee, which means I don't make much money a month, so that's why I rent those mobile homes. They are older mobile homes, but every time somebody moves out, I spend several months going in making them better. I do have one that I might want to replace. However, if I die before my daughter, she has an interest in building a home there. So why can't that be either a mobile home or a house being built?
If it's rezoned to RE1, it will prohibit mobile homes thereafter. Anything that is there existing now is grandfathered, and so it would be allowed to remain as long as it's not improved, as long as it's not destroyed beyond 50% of its value. It can stay there and be occupied just like it is now. So your daughter's option would be to use one of the units that's there, and that would be her unit. If she wants to replace that, it'll have to be with a stick-built home if it does get rezoned to RE1.
When you said, I guess major repair, or not repair, but what can they do? I mean, like water heater goes out, they can
Oh,
fix
yes,
it.
that's not, that is not an improvement, that is not an expansion of an existing use.
Okay.
That's just simply
Maintenance.
normal
Maintenance.
wear and tear maintenance stuff. Yes, Steve. So the idea behind the 50% rule is tornado comes through and demolishes the structures. If they cannot be restored to their pre-event condition because it's greater than 50% loss, it can't be replaced. It can't be restored. It has to leave. And then that parcel where it is will have to comply with the new zoning requirements. So the grandfather status anticipates that there are what we would call prior non-conforming uses. When you rezone it, there would be non-conforming uses that are there, but that's the grandfathering that's allowed. They can stay just like they are, no issues whatsoever, unless there's an expansion or destruction greater than 50%.
Well, I plan to replace one. It's a 72. Whenever this renter moves out, I would like to get a newer version put in there.
Yes. So that would, if you rezone, that would be a violation of the grandfathered status, and it could not be replaced.
I disagree with that.
No, you can be in disagreement that you don't like that.
I
But
don't.
that is accurate. That's an accurate statement of our zoning ordinance regulations.
Why can't it stay like it is? Why can't I have the ability on my own property to replace an older mobile home with a nicer one?
Anyone?
No.
Well, it's really, it's up to us, and I guess the area is changing. I suppose there's houses being built around there, is it not?
Yes, and there have been houses there forever.
Aren't they building one back in the back right now? Isn't that what it is?
So the request that drove the county's initiated rezoning is a request to construct a site-built home in an area that is currently zoned MHP. You can't do that. In other words, the applicant for the site-built home wants to put a site-built home in that area. So the point would be that the area is changing. It's currently MHP. The area is changing to the point where you're getting a request for somebody to build a stick-built home inside an area that is zoned MHP. That tells me they want to do that because the property, the higher and better use of the property is with a stick-built, not mobile home.
So the way it's zoned right now, if her daughter said, I'm ready to build my house, she
She
couldn't
couldn't
do
do
it.
it.
This would help her to where she could build her.
Yes, sir. She could build a house if it's zoned RE1. That's
see.
correct. Also in RE1, just for the record, in RE1, we have the ability for individuals to request a hardship where this board can, on occasion, allow a mobile home in RE1 where there is an established showing, a demonstration that there's a hardship. Typically, your hardships would be somebody has an elderly parent. The elderly parent is living in a stick-built house. There is the ability for a child, an adult child, to come and render care, but they want to use a mobile home for the adult child to live in. That's a hardship. You guys have fairly consistently allowed it where there's that demonstration. There are some conditions that we put on that, but that's an indication that the board is willing to work with any individual request that could be hampered by this rezoning.
Why can't it be rezoned for either or? Aren't there areas that's rezoned for either or?
No, that's not how
There's
the
not-
zoning works. No, ma'am.
There's no area at all that's either or.
So,
Do you live there?
No, not at this moment. But I keep my mobile homes up in case I do need to move there.
Did you give, I missed it, did you get your name and address?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's the reason I asked you to live there, because I didn't catch the name, your address.
So typically, when a rezoning is before the board, it's evaluating really two things. It's wanting to
Yeah, I got her
know,
name, but I didn't-
is there evidence that there has been a change in the character of the neighborhood to justify the rezoning? And is there a demonstrated need for the proposed use? So upon those two showings, your staff is saying, we believe that there's been a change in the character. That's why you're getting requests to put a stick-built house inside an MHP, right? So that's number one. There's some evidence there that there's been a change in the character of the neighborhood. The second is a demonstrated need. So you've got is an you've got a mobile home section that's immediately adjacent. You need more residential that allows for stick-built and not all of it be MHP. There's not as much demonstrated need for MHP that you already have immediately adjacent. So this rezoning makes sense from the staff's perspective. That's why we brought it as a county-initiated rezoning.
Well, I'm
Do
down
you
there
have
all the
any-
time. I've only seen one new house being built. Where's the other?
Yeah. So
I'm not sure whether, I don't know about that.
are there any other questions, comments? You need any other information? Okay.
So when will this go into effect?
Immediately upon passage by the board. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition on this matter? Anyone? Just take the property out of that.
I didn't hear.
Take my property out of that. It's right there on the,
It's not before the board. It's zoned as a block. We try not to do what's called spot zoning. That's exactly what this would be. If we granted your request, we have to grant the same request for everybody else that goes through a rezoning. We don't do spot zoning. We don't pick out individual parcels where the character of the neighborhood is changing. So that's not a request that we can honor. Is there anyone else that is here to speak in opposition on this matter? Anyone else?
then I have another question. When that renter moves out, I cannot extend, but I have to keep the outside like it is. I can do anything else on the inside?
As long as there is no significant change to the current use, it will be grandfathered, as long as there is no significant change. If there is an expansion, a replacement of a unit, that is going to trigger a loss of the nonconforming use, and it'll have to leave. That's an issue that the county has to address after the fact.
She asking doing something on the inside?
Yeah,
How
so-
soon are you wanting to replace this?
Sir,
How soon are you wanting to replace this?
I don't know. The renter's been in there probably 5 years, and he hasn't mentioned moving. But I've seen, repairing my other places, I've seen the need to do some repairs on this one. I don't plan to add on to it, but the roof over, it needs a new roof. I'm gonna have to do that. And I'm sure on the inside, it's gonna be quite a bit of work.
As long as the work to repair is not greater than 50% of the unit's value, she's in good shape.
Well,
That's the
unit's
general
value,
rule of thumb.
It's a 72 trailer, so it's gonna be
I
over
understand.
that.
Yeah.
That one's gonna be hard to do much repair and stay compliant. But at the end of the day, the issue of compliance with the grandfather status is up to the county's work staff to sort of police. My advice would be, stay in constant communication with Ms. Renee's office, tell her what you're intending to do with any individual unit, and let the staff go out and evaluate whether or not what you want to do will allow you to keep the grandfathered use. It's all about communication.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other comments? If not, we will close that public hearing. At this time, it'd be appropriate to take action.
All right, have a motion to approve.
I have a question.
It's your area.
Why do we not do RE1A?
Probably because there's RE1 immediately or close by, am I right? Yeah, so RE1A is a situation where they're allowed by conditional use. So when you're really trying to move things towards residential, Jay, you're better off to go with RE1.
So you wanna go okay, well, alright. Never mind.
All right,
I make motion to, approve the rezoning.
Second.
motion approved by Jay, second by Steve. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Item B under my section is what is this? A conditional use permit request made by Morgan Hodge. We will open that public hearing. Mr. Hodge is seeking a conditional use permit to construct a 3,000 square foot metal building. This will be at 136 Bella Fleur Drive. He's purchasing a 3-acre tract on the west side of Bella Fleur. Property zoned RE1. RE1 does not allow metal exterior. Property was posted, notice of public hearing was published in the newspaper. No calls have been received in opposition on this matter. That public hearing is open. I'll ask for anyone who is here to speak in opposition to the Morgan Hodge conditional use permit to come forward at this time. Anyone here to speak in opposition on that matter? Gentlemen, I don't see anyone here to speak in
Yeah, I've had
opposition on that matter.
I've had nothing, but, nobody, everybody seems to be fine with everything.
Typically, when we consider conditional use permit requests, we address a number of factors before we grant those. Those factors are set out in section 2905 of your zoning ordinance and are incorporated in this hearing. If there are any conditions or additional conditions that the board wishes to consider on this matter, it can do so at this time. Otherwise, it'd be appropriate to take action.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Steve, second by Jay. I can't think of any conditions to be necessary.
Typically, the kinds of conditions that we're talking about there, Jared, would be the minimum square footage, but this is a 3,000 square foot
Right.
proposal. I don't know that there is anything. Is this one off the road? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can't even
typically,
see anything back there.
Yeah, so the things that would be our normal conditions are not present here, and so we can dispense with those.
Okay. Got a motion second. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Item C under my section, gentlemen, is a public hearing on the Phyllis Mitchell conditional use permit at 686 Andrew Chapel Road, District 4 property. We'll open that public hearing. Ms. Mitchell is seeking a conditional use permit to place a 2021 32 by 80 manufactured home at 686 Andrew Chapel Road's 4.86 acre parcel of family land. Property is zoned RE1. Ms. Mitchell provided a survey of a 1.35 acre parcel that will be divided out for this home to be placed on. Deed has not been recorded when the application was received. She plans to place the home on a concrete slab and skirt it with brick. Property was posted, notice of the hearing was published, no calls have been received in opposition. Before I allow for comments or questions, I want to interject for purposes of the record something that is important. This piece of property, this 4.85 acre property, has prior conditions established by the board. So I want to remind the board about this. At its meeting on July 2, the board, sitting as a planning commission, allowed the applicant to appear before it in an informal manner and issue a request to the planning commission that it recommend to the Board of Supervisors that she be allowed to place one additional manufactured unit on this family property. The Board of Supervisors had previously voted to preclude placement of any additional manufactured housing units on the 4.86 acres without Board of Supervisors authority. At the 7-2 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission indicated its intention to allow the placement of one additional manufactured housing unit on this family property, but to then preclude any placement of any additional manufactured housing on the property in the future. That was noted as a part of the 7-2 Planning Commission minutes, and I wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
Yeah.
This is one more allowed manufactured unit for this family property, and that will be all. Okay?
That's what we did before?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Well,
This
that's
is
what
the
we're
same
doing
thing.
Same, we said that in July, when we were planning, when we were looking at it, that no more, this is it. And,
Jared, y'all said that as a planning commission. What I'm indicating here is that as a condition that you will initiate as a Board of Supervisors in granting the conditional use be identical to what we said in the Planning Commission. That's all we're doing here. So it's not 2 units, it's just one. It's the same one that we were discussing on July the 2nd. We were just discussing it in Planning Commission. Now we're discussing it
I
in the
thought you
board.
said you already got one there.
no, well, this is the one we were talking about July 2nd.
Okay. But it's one there prior to that?
There's a family property,
Yeah,
I think there is one.
I'm confused.
Yeah,
in what
there
you-
is one that's been there.
Okay, so there is one there, so
Yeah,
this is
and
2.
she's a relative
I
who
got
wants
you.
to go back home there.
Okay, so this is the second one.
Right.
I see.
After this one,
Yeah.
we're done. So I just wanted to make that clear that we're
Okay, I
saying
got
that
you.
now as a Board of Supervisors.
All
right.
I know what you're talking about.
Phyllis, you understand, don't you?
That's what I'm saying, this can't anything else go with
Right.
it's us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're, okay.
So I will ask if there is anyone here to speak in opposition to Ms. Mitchell's conditional use permit request. Anyone here opposed to it? I assume that the Mitchells are in favor of it. Very good. So we will close that public hearing, seeing no one here to speak in opposition. At this time, it would be appropriate to indicate any conditions that the board wishes to make, if any, and/or take action.
I make a motion that we approve it, and then, I got a little discussion after that.
Okay.
Second.
I like discussion. They-
Motion
I got
approved by
first,
Steve,
yeah.
second by Brad, now discussion.
They come to me a couple, 2 or 3 months ago, and they went step by step exactly what the procedure says to do. And I think Mr. Kirsch, Leroy Kirsch is, he helps us a lot in the county, lets me know if we have a problem, a couple, whatever. And anyhow, it's been pretty easy to work through this. Thank y'all.
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
got it. Motion second, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
Item D, gentlemen, is a public hearing on the Rankin County initiated rezoning request on Highway 49, so District 1 property. The county is initiating a rezoning of 6 parcels on Highway 49. Staff is seeking a zoning change from C3 to RE1A for 5 of the parcels, and to change one from C3 to A1, and this will be for an 8.399 acres of an adjacent 25-acre parcel. All of these parcels have residential homes on them. The proposed zoning changes will be consistent with surrounding properties. Property was posted, hearing notice was published in the paper, and property owners of the 6 parcels were notified by certified mail, as well as property owners within 160 feet of the property lines. This is an occasion where we believe that the original zoning classification applied to the parcels was in error, and that error needs to be corrected. At this time, that hearing is open. I will ask if there is anyone here to speak in opposition to the county-initiated rezoning request for 6 parcels on Highway 49.
So what does this mean?
Come up with it, explain it.
Yes, you got to come forward. Yes,
Come-
ma'am.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am. You'll give your name and address, please, and then you can address the board. Thanks.
I'm Gail Grover and I live at 3929 Highway 49 South. And we've already gone through a lot last year. Our house burnt. And so now it's commercial. We still own that land, which is next door to us. We couldn't even put a temporary camper up and stay on our own property, so anyhow,
Is this one of the parcels, Renee?
Yeah.
so what does this mean?
Actually, this is
I know you might have
he
to
can
talk
explain this,
elementary
guys,
to
it's
me.
gonna help you.
It's gonna help.
It's gonna help you.
So it's going from commercial 3, which is highway commercial. It's the most intense commercial classification that we have. You put a gas station there. That's how intense it is. The change will take it from that to RE1A, which is a residential classification. So it would allow for a residence.
Well,
Would allow for-
Ought to be RE.
It
Ought to be
matches the
RE1.
surrounding properties. That is residential estate 1 with a transitional add-on. It is designed to be something that buffers ag use with more intense residential use. So it's in a transitional phase. If you want to put a house on it, you can do that. If you want to put a mobile home on it, you can come and ask the board for permission to do that, and you would be allowed to do that.
You may be granted that.
Yeah,
Not-
maybe.
Not of
It's
sure.
a condition, but it could be. But definitely a house, if you want to put a house there, you can put a house there.
But not, you couldn't put a camper trailer anyway. Anyway.
We don't allow
Well,
residents.
let me, and I was gonna explain this. Way before me, all that area down there got rezoned to commercial. And I don't know what triggered it, but it rezoned everything down through the Star, even the main street of what they call Star. There's just houses in the Baptist church. And so several years ago, we discovered that, and we sent out notices to everybody to try to have it rezoned back to residential. Because what it was, all these people, if a house burned, you couldn't rebuild it. And nothing commercial is gonna be put down there probably in my lifetime of any, really, because if you knew where this all lays. So we sent these notices out. We had a little public meeting held there. Craig was there, Renee was there, explained to everybody the maps. Some, and anybody wanted to take theirs out then could take it out. Bunch of people did. And then there's some didn't realize what it was, didn't show up. Well, in this situation, this is the same, part of the same thing basically. And I want to just kind of clean it up because her house burned, couldn't put it back. There's another house, I think a tree's fallen in it. It's totaled, can't put it back. Lady's been 80-something years old, only place she's ever lived. So
Carolyn Williams.
right, so we got together and we said, let's try to clean up this through here. It's nothing but houses, and then if somebody wants to one day come back in commercial, they can come back and reapply for some commercial
correct.
build set up.
That's correct.
But that way it protects their homes, because right now, the way it stands, they're in a real pickle. So that's what this is about, and your situation, it was unfortunate, but we're getting it cleaned up, and that's something we've been working on, trying to do this, even back, like when you had your situation, wasn't much we could do. So that was the way I thought, and I felt like the board would agree, and they, to try to clean it up. You know, something will change down there one day, but you and I, Bob, I've been there all my life, and it's not really changed other than, I think we've got Dollar General down there. So, that's what it's all about, so that's what we're trying to do, and so really, it's gonna help you. So, it's unfortunate, the timing, but this is not something you can just do overnight. And, but I hope it helps you, and, you know, I know you still have a slab there. Yeah. I mean, I know that, and I'm sorry that we couldn't do it sooner, but this is what, we were able to get this done, and so I hope it helps you. Does that answer your question, is what is this about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's really a good thing where you're concerned, and everybody around down through there, so, okay.
And I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got one more.
And I'm not here necessarily in opposition, I'm just here to learn and understand. Hi, I'm Melanie Wagner, and I have the property adjacent to the G2 119 being rezoned from C3, I think, to A1. And I just wanted to understand what was maybe the thought behind rezoning that from, you know, from commercial to A1?
Yeah.
Now, where are you located?
4160 US Highway 49
Yeah,
South.
but I'm familiar with all that.
Oh, yeah,
but,
Windy Oaks RV Resort.
Huh?
Windy Oaks RV Resort.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's, you're commercial.
Right.
Yeah,
I
it's not
just-
gonna affect you.
Yeah, I'm just here to learn, you know, I'm trying to
Okay.
really become a member of Rankin County.
All right.
I'm fairly new here.
Well,
So I just
basically,
want to understand.
basically, I think I can answer it when you jump in.
All right.
But basically, it's just what we said, to clean it up, fix it to where these people that live in their homes, they've been there all their lives.
It was grandfathered in.
Well,
Yeah,
Before the
that's
zoning.
exactly
yeah,
right.
before the zoning. I mean, they were there, like this lady, 82 years old, that's the only home she's ever had, raised her children there. And it's old and a tree fell on it. Their house burned. It allowed them the opportunity to build back.
So why is it going to ag?
Huh?
She's asking.
What?
Why is it going to ag?
Because that was not,
Not going to ag.
It is.
Hmm?
It is.
It's a 25-acre parcel, so it will match the rest of the property.
Yeah. There
So
was a
G2
part of
what-
it, Jay, that was C3, and the back half was ag.
That's what she's asking.
oh,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's just really what
Yeah,
I'm trying to
It's
understand.
matching, it's making that parcel one composite, unified,
Yeah.
zoned A1.
That makes sense. I just really just wanted to learn and
Yes.
understand.
Yeah, which is the second least restrictive zoning classification in the county. Our ag zones will allow virtually any kind of activity
Right.
to occur there, legal activity, with the exception, generally speaking, of hog farms,
Yeah.
very high intense ag uses that would be corporate type of farming.
This is not the first time we've done a portion and left the back portion
Okay, that makes
okay.
sense.
Okay.
All right, thank
All right.
Do
you.
y'all own the, adjacent, are you adjacent to that?
Mhm, yes.
But
So if by chance, if they wanted to expand, if they purchase that property in the future, would they be able to run it as a resort, as a?
That I don't know. What,
well, you're on
how do we classify?
you're on the east side
You're
of
on
the
the other
highway.
side of the interstate.
You're on the other side.
I'm on the east side. No,
Okay.
it's right,
That-
no,
if
it's
you're
right
going-
next to it.
If you're going south,
If you're going north.
we're talking, well, if you're going south, what we're talking about is on the right side, and she's on the left side, correct?
If you're going north, we're on the right.
Right, that's right.
Right, okay.
Mhm. You're going north, yeah.
Okay.
If you're going toward the coast, you're gonna be on the left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah, that's
All right,
right.
maybe I'm a true blind, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
This issue of this continuity here with our zoning classification where we had overlaid C3 on top of what were existing residential uses, it really came to light for us. It was brought to our attention primarily by the banking industry. They were getting requests to refinance existing home mortgages on the properties that were along Highway 49, especially down in the Star area.
That's right.
And they were unable to provide a refinance option for those folks because of the zoning classification. So they asked us to step in and look at that. We also determined that if there was a house fire that destroyed a residence and it was classified as a C3 use, then that residence could not be reconstructed there. We felt like it would be better for us to go ahead and just take care of as much of the issue that we saw whole cloth. And this particular action is cleaning up what had been begun several years ago down in that area. So this makes sense. It looks like it's justified in terms of an original error to the original zoning classification, and that would be the basis upon which we would conduct this action.
Renee, is this including the old country club? Okay. Yeah, okay, right,
But it's just 8.39
Right.
acres. It's a strip that
right.
runs along
It's not that,
the highway.
what they call, that was not what they use for the landing strip and all that goes back to the ball field. You know, they got a little airplane there, goes back and back,
That's all we're rezoning is the strip.
strip,
along 49.
right there where the house is, yeah,
Okay?
okay.
If there's no other comments or questions about the board's action, it'd be appropriate to take action.
Okay. I'll make a
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Steve,
Second.
second by Brad. Any discussion? More discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay.
I'm looking at my EOC director just in case. The next item, item E under my section, is an authorization for the board president to execute an agreement between UMMC and Rankin County EOC for the provision of health-related screenings for Rankin County emergency workers and first responders. Should be pretty simple. UMMC is going to provide the required screenings for our ER, for our emergency response guys. I'm assuming this applies to volunteers as well? It's going to be for our volunteer guys. So we're going to be able to cover what has been a little bit of a hole in our system here with this. Yeah. Yeah, if you don't mind, I think that'd be appropriate.
To take a page out of Jerry Clower's playbook, this is so simple that our EMS coordinator can brief you on 100% of this stuff, so.
Good morning. So basically, a lot of y'all know that heart attacks, heart disease are some of the number one killers of our first responders out there. The UMC has got this branch where they will actually come out to your place of employment, run some physicals on you, do some lab work. Basically, if they need to do a stress test on your heart to see what's working, then they can do that. There's been many success stories with UMC as far as being able to catch problems ahead of time before they happen. So basically what we're doing is asking you to authorize us to enter in a contract. They have a set price for the actual physical, and it'll stay that same price for the entire year. We can add as many people we want to this group, and it'll come out of the EMS budget.
Who all does this cover? First responders, is that, what about volunteer firemen?
Yeah, so there is a possibility if they want to do that, if the county would be willing to pay for each individual volunteer to do that.
Our road crew and all that?
Well, right now it's set up as a public safety professional physical is what it's called. So it's aimed toward first responders, firefighters, paramedics, and so
I feel like they're our first responders.
They are, I think we can articulate that, and I think that's easy to articulate, that our road department absolutely is boots on the ground with us on a huge majority of our emergency scenes.
Yeah.
Obviously, as is the sheriff's department and all that, I
Right,
think that's
right.
easy to articulate.
The only impact that I
Work
can
on that.
see of adding the road guys into that is just simply the budgeting aspect of it. Where it's first responder oriented, it makes sense for that to be handled through EOC's budgeting process. Adding the road guys may bring some interaction there on the accounting side that we need to talk about, but I'm confident that there's a way that the administration can figure out how to budget for those by adding them.
EMS had it all covered.
Yeah, I heard that until somebody asked about the road crew. Then I saw a scratching of the
I don't think there's gonna be very
eyebrow.
many of Mike's men lining up to go to the physical. Especially when they tell them to get on that treadmill.
And our current health plan has a wellness provision in it where, or an annual wellness provision where they can go get a physical if you're a road crew anyway,
Okay.
at no cost.
So they got that option. Okay, yeah.
This is a great move, though, especially for our volunteers.
Yeah.
That's currently not being accounted for,
Yeah.
right? We don't have a program that is specifically designed to pick those guys up. And so this really solves that issue for us.
Might have taken Jim Vance's heart condition.
Exactly.
Do the research, make sure, and if we can, I'd like to publicize it, because we have a hard time of getting and keeping
Yeah.
volunteers, and this would be another perk that maybe would help us in these rural areas to attract.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And,
volunteers.
and another benefit to this is if they find something during this physical that needs a further look at, they go ahead and get you into a UMC doctor instead of having to wait 2 months or 3 months to get in with the doctor. They got the inside track.
Okay.
Jim Vance, he passed away a year ago, I guess, but he had a heart condition. They did, obviously, like everybody else didn't know.
Didn't know.
This would have, may have let him know something ahead of time, yeah.
All right. With that discussion,
All right, so make a motion to approve?
yes, sir, I just need a
All
motion.
right, motion approved by Daniel.
Second.
Second by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Item F is authorization for the sheriff and the board president to execute the school safety officer agreement between Rankin County Sheriff's Office, Rankin County Board of Supervisors, and the Rankin County School District for 2021-22 school year. I believe that this is going to be identical to the 2020 agreement that was executed. It provides for remuneration to the sheriff of $55,000 per resource officer. There's a $5,000 stipend that's been added on to that.
They give us $5,000 for each step.
Yeah. Right.
As long as they're in scope.
That's right. So this would track with the prior agreement is what I'm saying. You're simply authorizing it for this school year, and you're authorizing Jared to execute the agreement on behalf of the board.
Brian, are we having to put them in all the schools, or anybody putting their own?
What?
You don't want me to ask that?
No, y'all had to put a bunch of them. The agreement on the front was we still cover the ones we initially had in there.
Mhm.
They gave us the money to cover all the schools that the police departments wouldn't take, so we ended up taking several.
That's what I'm getting. Another police department stepping out?
Yeah, I think, a couple of them
Okay.
participated.
Good.
Some of them, but.
Good.
we still had to take over.
That's really what my question was, really, so you answered it. All right, appreciate it.
Hopefully this will keep this, little extra money on
Yeah,
making it a more desirable position to keep
Right.
good people there.
okay, great. All right, thank you.
Okay. Just need a motion.
I make a motion.
Motion by Brad, second by Steve. All in favor say aye. All opposed?
Item G, gentlemen, is the adoption of something that you've already done once. This is an adoption of a corrected resolution confirming the official map and legal descriptions for grading district boundaries for volunteer fire departments serving Rankin County. At a prior board meeting, this board authorized the adoption of a resolution that confirmed an official map and legal descriptions after we had complied with the request of the Mississippi Fire Rating Bureau by providing exactly what they asked for. Let me repeat, by providing exactly what they asked for, we were then notified that what we provided was apparently not what they asked for. So you are correcting the legal descriptions and the official map to provide what we think they are asking for, and we will see if this works.
So make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay,
Jay got it.
motion approved by Daniel, second by Jay. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay.
So just now that you've acted, just a quick reminder, the Rating Bureau is not a state agency. The Rating Bureau is a private, nonprofit entity that is overseen by the fire insurance, homeowners insurance companies who operate in the state of Mississippi. They establish the board, they establish its policies, they set the rules, and they run the outfit. And so I wanted the board to understand when it hears Mississippi Fire Insurance Rating Bureau, which sounds like a state agency, which sounds like, well, that's one of us. It is very much not a state agency. It is a private entity, and it has rules that govern how insurance for homeowners operates in the state of Mississippi and what rules have to be followed. Okay? So I thought that was important to.
Who designed it then if the state didn't have anything involved?
The state has some involvement with it through the insurance department, but it's a standalone agency. They're not regulated by the insurance department.
Right.
They work closely with the Mississippi Insurance Department, but they don't answer to them.
But they can kind of make the rules, change them somewhat.
They can control all the rules. The insurance department
Right.
can't. The insurance department can suggest rules and suggest grading scales, but there's been a big argument and discussion over how they grade.
Yeah, that's
So
what I'm getting
whether
at.
it's in grids or whether it's
Right.
by miles or however you want to do it. So it's a standalone.
They wanted 5 miles. That was their request. 5 miles from every station.
From the door.
From the door of the station.
Road.
In the center, well,
From road miles, what I'm getting at, not,
Right.
yeah,
So that's what we gave them.
yeah.
Well, when it came back, they told us there were roads that weren't in it that if we didn't include those, would not even be able to get fire insurance, which were getting fire insurance before, maybe at a grade 10. But now they weren't going to be able to get fire insurance, which we did not understand. So basically, I went back and redrew and encompassed every road in Rankin County, period. So we shouldn't have any holes in this whatsoever.
Huh.
On your question you were asking, Mr. Cross, a while ago, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe Mississippi is one of about 3 or 4 states in the United States that has their own insurance rating bureau. Everybody else in the U.S. goes with ISO, and there's pros and cons between the two. But Mississippi is one of about 3 or 4 states that does their own. And it's just a consortium of insurance companies that say, hey, there's got to be rules you got to go by. We sell the insurance, so we're going to make the rules, and we'll make you go by them.
And the ISO creates a set of rules that everybody adopts, and we want this plan.
Right.
And that's what we don't do.
ISO is really good at creating uniform structures, and then once they get adopted, they're no longer uniform. So there's pros and cons for all of that, just as Mr. Word said.
Okay.
Gentlemen, I have prepared, and it's not listed here under my section. Item G was the last item I had here. It's not listed by design because I wasn't 100% sure exactly what was going to happen. But I am prepared to walk you guys through a discussion of the American Rescue Plan Act, your funds, and some ideas that we have that relate to that. I am willing to do that under additional business, or I can start now. It's your, we'll put it under additional business. I also want to warn you, we do have executive session today.
Thanks for the warning. It's raining, though. Not much we can do. All right, Keith Hicks, County Administrator.
Good morning. Item A is approval for Rankin County to accept a lease purchase financing agreement with Trustmark National Bank for 2 new dump trucks. It's an annual interest rate of 0.77% and authority to execute the documents.
So moved.
Second.
Motion approved by Daniel, second by Brad. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye. All opposed.
And item B is approval for Rankin County to enter into the annual computer software support agreement with Delta Computer Systems and authority to execute the documents. And you can see the adjustments in the rates for this upcoming contract year.
Is this kind of what we've been doing?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, they go up every year for no reason.
It's the only game in town, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion approved by Daniel, second by Steve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
Thank you, Jim.
all right. Additional business to be discussed. Scott, you got something?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you guys are well aware that our phone system is aging and is in bad need of replacement. It needed a replacement when I got here almost 2 years ago. I spent a lot of time learning about it, trying to just keep it up and running, figure out what we could do with it and what our options are. And I prepared this little spreadsheet you guys might have in front of you, a little short green spreadsheet. So I tried to detail what we're doing today. And so the first column of Avaya current is what we're paying today for our telephone system. As I discovered a few weeks ago, the amount that we're paying for support obviously is far too much, as we sustained a 6-hour outage to which they could tell me no reason why we had it and had no ideas about how to fix it or to keep it from happening again.
How did you get it up?
It just magically turned back on. And I did a root cause analysis with 2 of their engineers in the following week, and neither one of them could tell me why it went down and what to keep it from happening again. They just told me to buy another one, have it sit on the shelf next to it, and I can just move everything to it and hope that that one turns on. All right. Anyway, that was recent. But we've had constant issues, and you guys are well aware. So I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what would be a good solution for the county to solve its existing issues, as well as add additional feature sets that I really think we would all appreciate having. The only option with the Avaya that we have right now is a forklift upgrade. We have to replace it. There is no upgrades with anything that we can do with the system the way it is today. This has shot me in the foot pretty much the entire time I've been here because I can't add any extensions, I can't add any licenses to it. I have to shuffle around and find somebody who's quit to try to find an extension just to make an announcement because COVID is here and we need to know about that. All of those things were difficult for me. So I got a lot of hardware quotes from various vendors, including C-Spire and various other people, and I came up with 2 solutions that I felt both fit and met the needs of the county, both from a budget perspective as well as meeting all the needs that we have today as far as what we're going forward. The first solution was a Cisco solution. That required basically replacing all the equipment we have today with all new equipment, and then of course having maintenance and service and installation and various things that go along with it. As you can see, there's a $127,000 outlay of equipment, and every 5 years we would be looking at a similar ticket item to replace that equipment if we want to keep the system from being in the same situation we're in today. All right. The last column is actually a no equipment required purchase. There's a small amount of equipment. We have to buy some phones. Most of the phones will be provided to us as part of the service. This is a cloud service. All of our phones would no longer terminate here. They would all terminate in the cloud in a multiple data center, highly available type environment. Today, if my building goes down either due to power or connectivity or fiber cut or insert reason why, our phones are down until that problem is repaired. With this third option that I'm recommending, there is no physical thing that could happen to the county that would keep our dial tone from coming in. Our first responders will be able to get their same dial tones directly to their cell phone or any phone that we provide them. If we had to create an additional call center someplace else, all we'd have to do is put phones in place. As long as there was an internet connection, those phones would work. All the issues that we've had with incoming calls in various departments. We've had routing issues, all these other problems. We would have insights into that so that we'd be able to see what kind of issues we're having. And if someone tells us that they haven't been getting a call for 5 days, we can look at their desk and tell whether or not they've actually gotten a call for 5 days. We have no access or ability to that reporting today. So it would give us all those capabilities. So I broke all this stuff down and I tried to get at what it was going to cost us over 5 years, which is an average period of time in which we'd expect the life of a system before we'd have to add additional upgrades and additional equipment. And thankfully, we ended up with the cloud system being a lower cost system over the 5-year period. Now it is more than what we're paying currently per month by about $2,000. However, we get so much more out of that system, and we also don't get a whole bunch of additional equipment that we, the IT department, would have to maintain and keep up with. So I just feel like it's the best solution. So like I say, I brought those 3 solutions to you guys, or I should say 2 solutions to you guys to take a look at. I think we should move on the Jive solution. That's what I'm recommending, but I gave you all these other options so that y'all could see what the costs were.
Services that you say that it brings to the table that we don't have.
Well, I tell you right now, the one that I'm harping on hard time is reporting, because we have absolutely no reporting ability. So if someone comes to me and tells me they're having a problem with their phone, I have no real way to determine other than to look at it right now and see what it's doing. I don't have any ability to go back to 5 o'clock yesterday when they said they had a problem. And so that's a big deal. But also some of the additional features, again, I've been trying really hard since I've got here to try to make sure that there are no single point of failure in the county's access and activity. So I have replaced switches. I'm working on internet connection replacements. I've got a whole new set of storage and servers so that if this building went out, then the data would still be available. All these things that I've been trying to do. And the phone system is one of these things that we have that is not in any way, shape, or form able to survive any kind of outage. So that would be another feature that I would add into this, that this would give us the capability of being highly available and not being able to lose any calls or dial tone if my building goes down like it did a few weeks ago.
So you say that this whole campus loses power.
Yes, sir.
How are our phones still going to be working?
In this case, if this whole campus lost power, then people will be able to use the soft client on their cell phone and still be able to get dial tone. And those are all rules that we can set up. We can set it up so that their extension dials directly to their phone, their personal portable phone, but we can also set it up where it does a follow me automatically. If their extension's dead and it's not ringing, it'll automatically call these additional numbers, however that works. Today, if we tried to do something like that, once the power went out here, it wouldn't work because all of those forwarding and routing rules take place inside this building.
Right. What about 911? Have you verified all of that works?
Yes, sir, and I've actually made some improvements based on that to the way we're doing 911 today. Today, this is actually, again, going back to our outage we had a few weeks ago. The 911 lines did not go down. However, their ability to be able to direct calls from 911 to other places like other responders and other reasons, ambulances, things like that, they couldn't do that because all that goes through our system. So part of this change will be to get those lines completely separated from that so that if in the instance we have that kind of issue again, that it's not impacting 911. Now, they were still able to operate. They could use their personal cell phone, and they called and talked to ambulances or whoever they needed to do. They still operated. It was just didn't allow them to use their equipment, and it caused delays, and it wasn't as seamless. So this would return us to a situation where that wouldn't be an impact anymore. Again, unless there is some kind of major physical problem, but then dispatch picks up it over at EOC, and it would work the same way.
So at the end of 5 years, what investment would have to be made if we went this route?
We would just continue to pay our monthly fee.
So there really wouldn't be another...
No, sir. Not unless we had a significant change to the way that we're doing things. Like we had another office and we needed to add 50 phones, we'd have to buy those phones. But other than that, no, sir.
About all these odd end telephone lines we always have to keep up with AT&T on, what happens with all that?
All of that's going away. So this is going to what's called simplified billing. And actually, the majority of our weird phone lines and things like that are faxes and stuff like that. All of those fax lines and everything else are actually going to go to an electronics fax. We won't have to actually maintain or buy equipment for fax machines anymore. And I didn't even include that in here as a value add. But all the alarm dialers and things like that, those will all go through just like they normally do. No changes at all.
What is the time period that we have to do this?
If we want to get the phones for free, we've got to buy by September 30th.
For how long? I mean, what period of time?
There's not a requirement.
If we decide to change someday down the road, what is it?
how difficult is it to roll back to a physical system like a Cisco?
The difficulty would be actually be the same difficulty as today. It would basically be acquiring the equipment and then going through the porting process. But there wouldn't be any like, oh, you have to pay us $50,000 or we're not going to let go of your phone lines. There's no kind of hostage scenario or anything like that.
I'm good. Seems like you've done your research on it, so I'm
tried.
good. You want approval today, do you?
Yes, sir, I would.
That's what it said,
So,
potential.
all right, so I'll make a motion to approve the Jive system. Is that what you
Yes,
call
sir.
it?
Second. Who's jiving?
The Jive.
All right. Motion approved by Daniel, second by Steve. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hey, it's a good job, Scott.
Hey, Mike, you got a question for me?
You just made one statement a while ago about the 911. I just wanted to let you know, these are two totally independent systems.
Hey, this was going good.
Absolutely nowhere
going good
is
till you
our
got word
911
up there.
lines connected to this. No, totally different systems. However, it is critically important, the part that he was talking about, when we catch a 911 call from or to the SO and they need to transfer it to a different PSAP, that's where the problem comes in. So as far as 911, this has nothing to do with that. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were perfectly clear on that. We're paying $47,000 a month for 911, so totally different animal.
You see how he just gets that in there?
Yeah.
All right. Craig, you
Back
want
to Slay.
start yours? Oh my, we had a movie.
We got it full screen.
All righty. This is a review of the American Rescue Plan Act legislative activity and its effect on Rankin County. I'm going to give you guys enough basic lead-in information to help us understand kind of what we're dealing with. And part of what I'm going to be discussing with you today has to do and relates to the issue of compliance with the U.S. Treasury regulations that control the expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act funds. What you're going to hear, and I need to stress this, what you're going to hear is what a team of folks that you guys have entrusted to go and dig into this stuff and come up with some ideas and recommendations. This is our ideas. This is our recommendation. You are not required to follow that. You are completely justified to figure out other ways that could make sense. And so I don't want anybody to be under the impression that just because we're saying this is what makes sense and this is what we think complies, that everything else should be off the table. All right? So we will have justifications to give to you at the end of the presentation as to why we think this makes the most sense and why we think these are good ideas, but by no means are we attempting to force fit. Who is the we? Well, you asked me to kind of be in charge of the group to come up with ideas and to figure out ways to stay in compliance. You allowed me, thankfully, to surround myself with some really smart people. Your administrative staff is at the top of that list. We start there. I had to have our county administrator, I had to have Ms. Laura, I had to have Ms. Wanda. I've had to have all those folks rally around to try to help shepherd through this process. You let me use Wagner Engineering, Joe Wagner, and those guys, and it'll become clear as to why we went to them fairly quickly. You let me use our Brunini guys to really dig deeply into the legalities and the technical requirements to set out in Treasury, and they have been at the table helping to move us through this process. That group was also including your consulting engineer, Mr. Parker, and your road manager, Mr. Harrison, who have been very instrumental and helpful in getting us to a point where we can give you guys meaningful information about specific project ideas, okay? So I want to start, Renee, if you'll go to the first slide there. This whole thing came about, as you know, because the federal Congress and the guys in D.C. decided it's a good idea to send money under what they call the American Rescue Plan Act. It's all related to the virus. Every bit of this resulted from and came about because of the virus situation. Of the amount that they designated to spend, 61.5 billion of it has gone specifically to counties across the United States. Rankin County is getting eventually $30.15 million. That's how much we will get. The first tranche was received on May the 24th, and we got $15,079,786. That has been deposited in a segregated account, and there it sits until such time as this board makes a determination what is the best use of that money. We expect to receive the second tranche, which is an identical distribution to the first, no sooner than 12 months following the receipt of the first tranche. So I threw in there in that paren that we hope we will get the second distribution by June of next year. That's kind of ballpark. But the legislation actually just says no sooner than 12 months. So it could be 15 months or 24 months, I don't know. We won't know until we get it. Your funds have to be obligated on or before December the 31st of 24. Obligate is important. That doesn't mean spent. It means that you've identified a project or projects and the money has been set aside for the use of completing those projects that we hope will be compliant. Has to be spent by December the 31st of 26. So those are kind of the high-level pieces of this legislation that talk about the logistics, where the money came from, how much, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please, ma'am. These are the eligible uses as outlined in the legislation. They don't come with any guidance. You can support public health response to the pandemic. That's the first one. Support public health response to the pandemic. Good luck figuring that out. Number 2, address negative economic impacts of the pandemic. Number 3, replace public sector revenue loss. What does that mean? It means if the county can demonstrate that it suffered revenue losses as a result of the pandemic, dollar for dollar, you can use those funds to provide government services. Dollar for dollar. 4, provide premium pay for essential workers. And then number 5, invest in, and I put that in all caps to highlight that, invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. I want to note something here on this list. The first 4 have to do with a response to the virus. The first 4 are tied to negative impacts related to the virus. Any expenditure of funds that you intend to make using one of those first 4 eligible uses has to relate to a response to a negative impact created by the virus. Jay has consistently indicated to me and to others, I want to know what we can do with this money to help tourism. That fits in number 2. Address negative economic impacts of the pandemic. And so you start from how do we help the tourism industry to the extent that it has been negatively impacted by the virus. You have to fit that together. You don't just say, we can spend this on tourism. You say, we can spend this to help alleviate virus-related negative impacts suffered by the tourism industry. And then you have to fill in the details around that. The first step in determining what you can do to assist tourism is to determine how have they quantifiably been negatively impacted by the virus.
So say, for instance, the Braves, they missed a whole year.
Yes.
Did it take their revenue loss?
If it can be, well, let me hesitate just for a second, Jay.
What about that?
Let's go to what the United States Treasury says about that question that you just raised, okay? I'm going to read, this is from the U.S. Treasury's guidance. Listen carefully to what I tell you because it's word for word out of the U.S. Treasury's guidance. The first question is, funds may be used to aid tourism. I'll stop there because there's other components to that, hospitality industry, etc. To aid tourism or travel and other impacted industries that respond to the negative economic impacts of the COVID-19 public health emergency. Aid may be considered responsive to the negative impacts of the pandemic if it supports businesses, attractions, or business districts or tribal development districts that were operating prior to the pandemic and were affected by the required closure because of the pandemic. When we look at the governor's orders from March 2020 and beyond, we find that those orders are always instructive about what is not covered under the required closure. And they were listed constantly and then referred back to in every subsequent order. There were exempt businesses and industries that were not subject to a required closure. And so the question would then be, was that industry subject to a required closure? And when you say required, not federal, we're talking about the state's EMA order, the governor's orders. Were they required to be closed? And if they were declared exempt on the front end, they are not eligible for these funds.
So if they weren't exempt, then they would qualify.
If they were not exempt and they were required to be closed and were in fact closed and can demonstrate losses, that's probably close enough and we need to talk about it.
So you're basically saying the governor had to specifically say, you're required to close?
Yes. It had to be in the order that they were required to be closed by governor's order, by state law, or by governor's order. Of course,
but did he actually list businesses?
He listed types of businesses that were not required to be closed
Like
among
the sporting industry.
Yes, sir.
College sports.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They were all impacted, and nobody disputes that they were not impacted. Everybody knows that. In fact, the documents are clear from across the country. They've already done a lot of the math, Jay. The tourism industry as a national whole was down between 17 and 24% year over year from 19 to 20. 17 to 24% of that economic group, tourism and travel-related industry, lost the better part of a fifth of their normal annual revenues. Nobody disputes that. We know that. I'm telling you what the guidance says has to happen before this board can take this money and use it to aid an individual business. I'll tell you another thing. I went ahead because I know better than to come and talk to you.
I wasn't wanting to aid that individual business. I was wanting to take their loss mill, put it out, and put some asphalt on the road. But that's not the way that works.
No, sir, not at all.
You know,
in fact,
you know what you're saying there.
Replenishing their loss. That's what we could have done.
Yeah, actually, yes, to a degree. But let me tell you what other counties are doing, because I dug further.
Yeah.
I knew this discussion was going to need to be at a sufficient level of detail because you're very serious about doing what we can to try to help an industry that's clearly taking it on the chin, probably more so than just about every other industry, the tourism industry, because so much of that is travel related, so much of that's flights, so much of that is traveling from one state to another where there's different rules about who can go where. It was pre-vaccine, everybody was kind of shut down, nobody was doing entertainment stuff.
Right.
They're just trying to survive, right? So everybody knows, we understand, but there are ways that that industry can be helped primarily at the state level. And what we're really talking about here is what are we doing at the county level with our limited dollars, right? Let me tell you this, Jay, because I think it's interesting. I went to NACO and looked through their documentation, and I wanted to drill down specifically on what other counties across the United States are doing specifically with this tourism piece.
If you look at their formula also, supposedly their equation is a little different.
Which
Madison
equation?
County seems to think that the equation that the association NACO has would allow them to be able to capture some loss.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's come through yet or not.
Okay. Are we talking about piece number 3 here, the revenue loss?
Yes.
All right, so we moved on from 2.
Well, I'm sorry.
All right,
Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to make
Stay
sure,
on tourism.
before we leave tourism, I want to give you some additional information. So I drilled down, I said, what are other counties doing with this tourism piece, if anything? What I found was the vast majority are not going to do anything with tourism or travel or hospitality. They're just not. It's not what they do. They're not in the business of it. But I did find a few examples where there was a decision made to do it. You won't be surprised to know that Florida has a lot of activity in the tourism piece. And that's because their boards of supervisors are in a little bit of a unique situation in that so much of what drives their local economies is tourism in Florida. Right? Nobody's surprised by that. Even in heavy tourism, economic development, Florida, there is a reticence to use this money in that industry. It's not what boards of supervisors do. So I went and picked the most close example of a Florida county that I could get to Rankin County. Indian River County. It's on the far east side. It's on the Atlantic seaboard. It's between Daytona Beach and Miami, about halfway between. Vero Beach is the main city on the coast. That county has 160,000 residents. Their distribution of ARPA money, 31 million. Pretty close in terms of those two statistics to Rankin County. It virtually lines up exactly with us. Their tourism piece, what their board of supervisors, whatever they call them, decided to do, out of their 15 plus million first half that they got, they have given $275,000 to the Indian River Chamber of Commerce to be used to provide vouchers to individuals who are renting hotels, coming into Indian River County and renting hotels. When they leave, their Chamber of Commerce sends them a voucher to come spend another night on the county at a later date. That's how they chose to, quote, help the tourism industry. Vouchers funded by ARPA money, you can do the math. They decided that the most they were willing to go in for that could be related to the negative impact of the virus was 2 3/4, $275,000. That's out of a $15 million tranche. Not much impact. Decided to really spend that money somewhere else.
Have they spent all their money? Have they, or their 15?
No, sir. This report is actually dated July the 14th that I got. So this decision that they made to do that funding, I doubt if they've already sent the money to the Chamber of Commerce yet.
Had they allocated the other?
I have no idea.
14,700.
The report didn't indicate what they did with the rest of the money. This was specific reporting related to tourism expenditures. If you look at other counties around the country, that NACO's reporting on, there aren't any. Nobody else, at this point, nobody else has declared or at least reported to NACO that they're going to use the money on tourism. All right? So again, I go back. In order to spend the money on tourism, it has to address the negative economic impacts of the virus. That's critical. That means we've got, and by the way, but Jay,
Yep.
just one more point that I got to make. Recipient, I'm reading from the U.S. Treasury guidance. Recipients, that's us, the people, the groups that have received money. Recipients must maintain records to support their assessment of how businesses or business districts that receive assistance were affected by the negative economic impacts of the virus, and must report to the U.S. Treasury how the aid provided an appropriate response to those impacts. My point is this: to do anything in tourism, to do anything in hospitality around here, is going to require a significant amount of work to generate justification for it. The recipient, whoever it's given to, has to show this is how we were negatively impacted. They got to give us a dollar figure, and then they got to tell us what they intend for us to help them with, right? If that entity, and I have preached this from day one about these dollars, if that entity is not a political subdivision of some kind, if it's not affiliated with us, the idea that we're going to hand money scares the life out of me.
So if it is a public entity, you ever see any way that that money could be put down a road?
No, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely not. But why? Because the tourism industry is not in the business of building roads. And so if we send them dollars and it ends up in a road, somebody's going to say, why did they put asphalt down? That's not what they
like
do.
The Brandon Amphitheater, you know they lost plenty of money.
Yes, sir, I do. And so what we would have to require them to do is to demonstrate how they were negatively impacted, and then we've got to report back to the Treasury. We've got to report how the specific dollars that we provided aided to address the negative impact. That's why Indian River County in Florida said, give it to the Chamber of Commerce, right? And get some way to get more people to come and stay in hotels here. Those are direct. It wasn't give them $275,000 to pave the parking lot outside the hotel, the Holiday Inn Garden Inn. It was to get people to come and stay in the hotels.
Paying people to come stay.
That's not what we do. That doesn't make sense to the Board of Supervisors as far as I appreciate it. I don't want to get ahead of you guys on that, but I did need to help address, because y'all are getting picked on like a pack of crows. You're getting picked. People wanting you to spend money with them and on them, and it's totally legal, and we got it all worked out. And I'm telling you, the devil's in the details. And when you read more deeply, what you find is you can get yourself in some hot water in a hurry if you just go to handing out money. I don't want to see us do that, honestly. I don't want to create a record-keeping nightmare for us or for the people that you hand the money to. Because when the Shad Whites of the world decide they want to go after this, they're not going to just stop with us. They're going to follow it all the way to where it ended up. And that's what you and I, all of us, will have to answer for how the dollars got used. So we've got to be careful on that. All right, so let's move then to the number 3 piece. This is replacing public sector revenue loss. I was smart enough when I put this slide together not to dare put a dollar figure in here. The devil's in the details. Madison County's right. Madison County is saying, we don't subscribe to what NACO's formula is saying, because the accuracy of it is this: Nobody knows what the revenue loss calculation formula is. You know why? We don't have a final rule yet from U.S. Treasury. We are still waiting today for a final rule from U.S. Treasury. They stopped the clock on comments on July the 16th. We're still waiting. We don't have an interim final rule. Nobody knows what the final revenue loss calculator is going to look like, but we've been taking the interim final rule calculator and we've asked the administration to go whole hog as hard as we can to try to figure out what sort of loss can we anticipate. Here's where we are. We think we're going to be able to demonstrate some amount of revenue loss. We have no idea what it's going to be. However, because ARPA, because the legislation lets us use any amount of revenue loss that we can calculate, dollar for dollar to provide government service, that is the most flexible category of expenditure that we can find. It means pretty much we can spend those dollars on whatever we normally spend dollars on. Asphalt. That's what we normally do. We improve public roads and we make sure that they are in good shape for commerce and residents.
Do we have to show that these funds were lost due to the pandemic?
No, sir.
Okay.
Here's why. The language says you can assume that if you had revenue loss, it was related to the virus. So that Congress at least gave us a pass on that. We don't actually have to demonstrate that the virus caused us to lose it. They assume it. It's automatic in the assumption.
So we did lose about $2 million.
Oh, maybe 20.
We don't know. It depends on what the actual final rule from Treasury is on how to calculate the losses. It depends. When we get the final rule, we should be able to tell you guys some amount. I don't even want to put a figure out there. I'm telling you, we think we're going to be able to demonstrate losses, revenue losses. We have no idea what it's going to be.
Or when we may know.
I think we will know within the next 30 days, Jay. Right? Assuming we get the final rule within the next 10 or so, we should be able to give y'all a revenue loss calculation that we feel comfortable trying to support and substantiate within 30 days after that. Okay? So that piece is important, and we are keeping it in front of you. The idea being this: you don't have to spend, you don't have to identify revenue losses. You could decide, well, just forget about that. We'll figure out a way to spend the money on something else other than revenue loss. But it always made sense to us on this side to give you guys some real flexible money to be able to do what it is that you want to do and not be burdened by what it is that the Democrats in Congress want you to do. So do you want us to keep pushing this revenue loss calculation and try to get you an idea of what that is or not?
Yes.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
That's all I needed to hear. We will move forward and we will try our best to use the calculator that is given to us to generate the maximum amount of recovery that we can so y'all can spend it on what you want. All right? That's.
I've got a question. Can we take some, maybe not out of this line, but some of this money and pay for the research or whatever it is that brings this information to us?
Yes, sir.
To tell us what we can?
Absolutely.
So you already, okay.
Ahead of you.
Good.
So if we possibly could use, like I know our jail, we didn't house prisoners for a period of time. Did we not take that loss?
Yeah, if we can establish, there is some language that addresses public safety response. The devil's in the details.
What-
Guess
if
when you
we
get
don't-
this,
If we don't have them in jail, I guess the loss would be they're out there in the county committing crimes and causing other losses. But if they're not in the
Well,
jail.
I think you had them in the jail. You just wasn't taking somebody unless they were certain type of offenses, right?
Felony or something. No, we're usually full, and
Around over 500, we were on about 350.
Yeah.
But we were taking, we wouldn't accept misdemeanors and a lot of non-violent crimes.
yeah. So, Jay, this is important. This is important. It's always fun for me to be in this position as the bearer of all of the bad news.
Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to backfilling county budgets, to addressing shortfalls in budgets, when it comes to that, and these funds, the ARPA funds, the Rescue Plan Act funds, your start date for losses to be recovered is March the 3rd, 2021.
March.
March the 3rd, 2021. That's the date that the president signed the bill into law. Yes. March the 3rd,
Nobody can do that.
2021. Now, when I talk about aid for tourism and all that stuff, the dates go back. When we talk about revenue loss calculations,
Any revenue loss for the county starts March.
any revenue loss that is not that right there, replacing public sector revenue loss, any loss that you're saying we didn't have prisoners in the jail, that's not revenue that we budget for. It's generally anticipated in there, but they are not going to let us go back and capture, quote, what we should have got. That is not a revenue loss for the purpose of that calculation right there. March the 3rd, 2021. If you're having losses that occur from that date forward and you can demonstrate it, then you can come back.
I want to point out too that you really, on the felonies, as soon as like the police department, as soon as they arrest somebody, they find them over the action grand jury, we have to pay it anyway. On the misdemeanors, we were losing $25 a day, it's costing us $60 a day, so it wasn't that big of a loss. You know.
So how many do you think out of the 150 empty over there, or 200
It
were
may be like a
misdemeanors?
third of those, may have been, we could make $25 a day off of them. Again, we're paying $60 a day for them, so we're losing money either way.
Yeah, we actually made money not
I was
having them in
fixing to
there.
say, that's a positive.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to count the 60, all we count, we could count the 45 though.
All that stuff.
Yeah, I think they're
I
gonna
love
look
Jay.
different than that.
I love Jay and Jay's math. I want to use Jay's math every
There
time.
is another way to calculate it. If they weren't in jail, a lot of them are out in the streets committing more crimes and hurting people, and there's a loss. We just put a number on it, say $500 a day per person. Per person. It's still a misdemeanor.
Right. Okay. Next slide, Ms. Renee. Gentlemen, before I go into this, we're going to proceed to calculate those revenue losses and bring you that number.
Okay.
All right? And that's going to reduce your first tranche. By the way, that's a one-time deal. We don't get to do it again next year. We can't go back and say, oh, well, we're going to capture some more revenue loss. You get one shot at it. So this will be your one time to get it. And then y'all can decide what, if anything, you want to do with the revenue losses that are calculated. All right? Moving to the next piece. This is number 5 on your eligible uses. Renee, go back to that slide if you don't mind. Right there. Invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Notice that number 5 is totally unrelated to the virus. Has nothing to do with it. We don't have to worry about negative impacts. We don't have to worry about addressing any issues that relate to the virus. All right, go back there. Investing in water infrastructure. This is the piece that the team that I mentioned and identified for you guys briefly a few minutes ago. This is a piece that we have spent a significant amount of time, effort, and energy trying to develop And using the language that the Treasury guidance has provided to us, we have found some ways that we think make sense for a Board of Supervisors in Rankin County to use the money that is both compliant with the Treasury guidance, fits within the law, and can be helpful in terms of future discussions that we may have with state leadership and our delegation in DC. Okay? So I'm going to hand out to you what is not in my presentation. This is the project list that will fit within the water infrastructure piece of the ARPA. All right?
This, this is like rainwater, right? This is not provided as stormwater.
Exactly. This is stormwater related. As you know, guys, Rankin County, as a county, is not involved in drinking water supply. We don't have water lines. I've got one for you special. We don't have water lines running around the county that the county is responsible to install, maintain, operate, etc. Under the Treasury guidelines, I knew when I handed y'all that y'all would be interested in reading that. So y'all take a look, and we'll give y'all a few minutes to look over your sheets. All right? Y'all ready?
Sure.
As we were evaluating qualifications under the law for various water-related infrastructure projects, we set up a system whereby any number of projects across the county that fit within the definition of water infrastructure, water quality, erosion control, flood control, any potential project, site, location could be pushed through a system, an evaluation system, where its impact in meeting all of the words and requirements under the ARPA could be evaluated to see which project has the deepest impact. What you have in front of you are projects that all shake out of our system of evaluation as high priority projects. Okay? Here's what a project had to meet in order to be classified as a high priority project. It has to be achieved for potential impact on improved drinking water, improved water quality, to reduce erosion and flood risk, and to address previously identified priorities that relate to problematic drainage areas. Each project scored high as an indication that it achieves substantial impact all across all assessment criteria. So these 5 were pushed through our evaluation protocol, and they all came out on the backside as high priority, having met all of those conditions. Right? That's important for you to know. Why? Because the language is very clear. We will only approve, Treasury says, water infrastructure projects that are the types of projects that would be eligible to receive financial assistance through the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund or the EPA's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Those 2 legal concepts have been handed off to EPA and by extension to DEQ at the state level, and they have regulations that go with them, and you can go to those regulations and you can ask the question, what kinds of projects would be cleared if this money was coming from some other source other than ARPA. You see how the Congress did it? They said, here's some money. It's not EPA money. We're not giving it to EPA, we're giving it to you, county. But what we're telling you is, spend it, if you choose, spend it like you would if you went to EPA and asked them to fund a project for you. So we took these projects and we pushed them through a filter that looks like the EPA/DEQ filter. And these shook out. Oh, by the way, we've had multiple conversations with our friends at the state to ask the question, is this process that we're going through here, does this make sense to you? Does this look like the process that you would normally use? And the response is, yeah, that looks like our process. We agree that those kinds of activities would be the kinds that we would want to see if we were being asked to fund those projects. I mention that so that you guys understand we don't necessarily have to be on our own in making the call as to whether or not these projects would qualify for an appropriate use under the ARPA. We're using an existing model of vetting the projects, okay? So let's look at the projects quickly. What you find is that we've got stream crossings, we've got stormwater impediment issues, we have erosion control, flood control issues that need to be dealt with. We've got what I will call systemic and difficult drainage-related issues that we're dealing with. And we have, in a number of occasions, we have stormwater flow that is headed to the City of Jackson drinking water supply. And because of those connections, each of these projects has concepts that relate directly to state DEQ, water quality, state revolving fund issues that can be addressed in those manners, and we feel much more confident about suggesting these. These projects are on the list also. Why? Because, it might surprise you, each supervisor district has projects. That was important for us. Each supervisor district has projects. These projects made the list as opposed to other projects that were also in the mix because each of these projects can be completed within an estimated cost structure that fits with how much money you have. Each project has an estimated cost range in the neighborhood of $4 to $6 million. We're not going to get deep into the specificity of the project and the cost until we know that this is what the board wants to do, obviously. So some of these cost estimates are going to have to be updated, but the rough estimates on the front end suggest that if the board was of a mind to go in this direction, and these were the projects that it decided it would like to see happen, you can calculate for the moment somewhere between $4 and $6 million cost.
Question.
Yes, sir.
If we are able to do that, what's on here, plans, and we put these federal dollars to work out there, does that require us from then on to maintain this work like we have in some of the other?
Absolutely not.
Good.
And that's the beauty of this
Yeah,
particular
yeah.
project. This money is not coming through a federal agency. It is not coming through a federal agency to get to you. It came straight from the Congress into your checking account. What you would do again, there is a lot more work that has to go into designing and bringing these projects as actual projects back to you. This is a concept, okay? But I can answer your question specifically, Steve. Practically speaking, for some of these projects, not for all of them, but for some of these projects, we would actually interact with private property owners and we would secure temporary permission to go onto that property and to utilize these dollars. And it would be clear in that temporary document that once the project was completed, there would be no further responsibility on the part of the county to do anything. So a little bit of a step ahead of you there, anticipating that that would come up and prepared to deal with that as it comes up. Not every project's going to have that, but some are going to have some private property issues that we have to sort through.
Such as, how are you gonna sort through it?
You use temporary access easements that have a definitive date of termination, and you make it abundantly clear that there is no transfer of ownership and there is no continuing maintenance responsibility.
All right, where's the
I'm prepared to keep going.
Where's the rest? Is that all you got?
Let's take stock. Let's assume for the sake of this discussion, Jay, that we come up with some revenue loss. I'm gonna hope against hope.
I'm talking about more projects because we're supposed to be getting 2 to 1 on our money.
If we use it all. And the.
Next slide, please. Next slide.
Well, while she's doing that, like on this, and I guess we'll individually get with you or whoever. Just say on this one here from, Sarah Fox Rodeo Drive. There's both sides of Holly Bush.
Yes,
If you fix the bottom side,
Yes, sir.
don't fix the top side.
Both sides are anticipated, Steve. This project would be holistic. Steve, if I can just point out to you that last phrase, implement non-point source measures outlined in the county, that's stormwater management plan.
Okay.
And I should have mentioned this previously, and this is very important. I'm very thankful that in 2018, this board had the presence of mind and the forethought to adopt the county stormwater management plan. I'm very thankful. You know why? Because it is because of that document that we can even have this discussion. You and I would not even be talking about this if we didn't have that. Y'all were smart enough, and I'm giving Brad credit too, because he was at virtually every meeting anyway. So y'all were on top of things enough to say, we have to have a plan. And we're not going to get anywhere if we don't have a plan. And we've been able to take that plan now and make multiple trips to DC and get traction. And now we're able to use the language that's already in there from way before this virus, way before Congress ever thought about sending us money. We have the language now identified in a plan that you guys adopted that allows us to fold the use of this money right into our plan. So I'm grateful that y'all had the foresight to do that, and this is the payoff, in my opinion, for why we needed to do that, and thankfully we did. All right, having said that, first thing, this is our justification. Back to the revenue loss piece, that's the most flexible way for you to spend the money. So we need to work on the revenue piece, and we need to bring y'all that number. Jay, when we looked at these projects, it was with an eye towards us being able to show at least some demonstration of revenue loss. So we knew on the front end, don't spend all the 30 million on just these kinds of projects. We're gonna have some revenue loss, and y'all are gonna wanna spend that some way that y'all will come up with, whatever that ends up being. I hope it's a couple of million. You mentioned that. I hope that's where we end up. We're gonna work to try to get to that number if we can.
I was just talking about what,
All right.
the state is saying, they'll give us 2 to 1.
I'm going to get there. The next thing, investing in infrastructure, in water infrastructure will strategically align with your commitment to address stormwater management issues through your stormwater management plan. Basically, all you're saying to Treasury is, we have a stormwater management plan. We want to use these monies to further that plan. We're already working the plan. We're just going to fold it in and work the plan. Align Rankin County's goals and priorities for stormwater management with state and federal agencies who have similar goals and priorities. And isn't it nice that we can go to the state and possibly federal partners and say, help us work the plan. Here's what we spent. here's what we're gonna spend. We've made a substantial commitment. Can y'all please come along and help us? That's the agencies. That's DEQ. They have their own money. Hello?
But it's no guarantee. we
No,
get theirs. That's really
no,
good.
it's
Right.
no guarantee.
Right.
But they have it. And if we can get them kind of thinking about how we're doing things and working with us, we've got a much better option, a much better hope there. This is the most important piece, the last one right here. Align Rankin County with state legislative leadership's directives to use ARPA funds for projects that are transformational in their impact and are of the type that may call for, underline, additional state investment. We intend, with your permission, to start now going to state legislative leadership and asking them to put their money where their mouth is. We would like additional state investment for our work product that is transformational in nature. Show me another county that countywide is trying to address systemic stormwater management problems. Just show me one. I can show you slivers of counties where a separate political subdivision is trying to address those kinds of things. But nowhere in the state is a county, as a county, trying to get on top of stormwater management issues other than Rankin County. I want the state legislative leadership to continue to do what they've already done, which is to help us fund this endeavor. They've already done it. They did it last legislative session. They gave us money to work and implement our stormwater management plan. Thank you. I want to see more investment in that. I want to see the state say about Rankin County, we agree with what you're doing, and we want to support that. And if Mr. Hoseman feels really strongly that they need to come alongside and invest, we have ways now, we have a system now that is transformational. It's different from everywhere else, that will deeply impact the future of our county. We've got a system. We've got a way for them to put their money where their mouth is. Show us that you want to invest in transformational stuff. Here it is. And maybe we can convince the guys on the House side.
Yeah.
So Jay, I think
Good
that,
approach.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, but
We-
I want to add some more to it before
Yeah.
we go there.
Understood. The projects that are here made the list because they fit within the guidelines. They have an estimated cost that fits within the dollars that we think will be there. And each supervisor district gets a project.
Those bridges or culverts we were gonna help Pearl with along Highway 80 that we've already approved to do, why could they not be fit into that? Rather than take it out of our bridge fund, take it out of,
If it's after March 3, 2021, and it may be, then we can look at how that particular project is one of those where we replenish from the ARPA funds.
yeah.
We can look at that. But that's going to impact your total dollar
We haven't done it
distribution.
yet.
No, we hadn't done it yet. That's going to impact your total dollar distribution. And Jay, what we can do is we can look at, now that again, this presentation was to help you guys get lined up and unified behind concepts. And we brought this because we really think that if we go in this direction, we can substantiate and support why we did this, if ever asked to give an account, okay? But if y'all want to go in a different direction, you're welcome to do that. If y'all would prefer to look at individual projects that are like these that are on the list, but slightly different, we can look at that. We brought these because they were the highest priorities for each of the districts with about the same cost structure. That made it simple. That seemed the most fair way to do it, right? I don't want District 5 to get $8 million of ARPA money while District 1 gets 2. That didn't make sense as board lawyer at all. But it did make sense for 5 and 1 to get about 4.5 or 5 apiece. That made plenty of sense. So some of this is going to be cost and specific project related, but by no means are you wed to the projects that are on the paper, okay? We just may have to do a good bit of maneuvering.
Well, I think we could double it, truthfully. I mean,
We
we're
might
going
can.
2 to 1 on our money.
If we can, yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
that's what I say, it's
if
worth
they
it.
don't give it to us, we just do the projects that are more priority to us, you know?
Do another project for each district, an alternate, if we can get the other funding.
Or however many y'all wanna come up with.
Well, I mean, if we can only double it.
Well, no, the beauty of this, Steve, don't forget that the projects, the doubling is the funding.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
there's no
Some-
telling how many projects could be handled. And if I
Oh, man,
want to caution you,
I got a lot of
Still gotta
thoughts,
Get it all
but
done in this time period.
no question, I want to caution you on a couple of things.
Well, and I guess that's my question to you, and maybe it's where you're going, a time frame parameter around this deal. So making decisions or getting the ball moving to start projects, we know how that's like a human rain delay on getting projects started.
Yes, sir.
So tell me how that time frame goes into having to make a decision that this is where we're going.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, the legislative budget office for the state's fixing to kick off here in late August, early September.
Right.
So projects or discussions to those guys where they can take action.
Yes.
So
What's in front of you does not require state matching funds. Each of these projects that are in front of you could be handled with the money that you are going to get from ARPA. We're very hopeful that these projects and this methodology that has been created here is of the type that would incentivize the state to come along and do matching. And we're very hopeful. And we anticipated, by the way, that could happen. Why? Because we have a number of additional projects that are waiting in the wings to see whether or not that can happen. We have projects that we can put back in front of you on top of these that would fit within the same series of analyses that we could bring to you and say, same deal, new project, here's your cost. And just keep working the plan that
Y'all
way.
send us all that.
Sir?
Why don't y'all send us all that, so we can decide which ones we wanna do?
We can provide you with all of the data that has gone into this. 267 projects and sites.
You got it broke down.
You
by
want
the
all
state?
that data?
That's our book that we got we did
Oh.
a couple years ago.
What Sophie brought in and started walking through with me before we stopped him and said, Sophie, stop. About that tall. But you're welcome to go through it, Jay.
Which ones do you have out there waiting, though? You talking about the whole book?
It's 5 different supervisor districts, and it's gonna be up to y'all to help identify what are the areas that we would like to see addressed, right? Y'all have got several projects. By the way, it doesn't matter how much y'all get from the Treasury. It doesn't matter how much the state decides to match. There won't be enough money to address all of the issues that we have across this county.
Well,
There
no,
won't be enough.
Our study showed we needed 100 million.
That was
3
5
years
years
ago.
ago,
Yeah, 3 or 4
Steve.
years, yeah.
That study was actually conducted before you guys even started working on the stormwater management plan. Yeah. So,
Well, I understand there's not enough, but we should be able to put some more in.
yes, sir. And it could be that, that you guys take the approach, instead of doing what I will call complete projects, which all of these are, by the way. These are all complete. They don't have to be stage 1, stage 2. They're all start from point A and go to point B and address the problem. I mention that because there are some projects that are just as important, just as high a priority, that aren't here because their estimated cost wouldn't allow them to be here. Their estimated cost It's through the roof.
Yeah, like Richmond Creek.
Richland Creek. Others that have big price tags.
Yeah.
That again, the idea was we know it needs to be on the list, and it is. By the way, some of these projects that I'm talking about that aren't on this list were front and center in Washington D.C. for discussion.
The thing
Brad
about
can
it, doing it
attest to
this
that.
way, you see an impact. I mean, doing multiple projects, you're able to see an impact, just rather than all over. I think the people would see it impacting everywhere.
Right.
Well, I really don't think going in Oak Grove subdivision, rip-rapping a ditch is gonna cost $4 million, so I'll be surprised, but unless this plan is calling for something other than that, I don't.
But it's the same
Jay,
thing.
I think you're alluding to a project that has its component parts improving water quality,
Yeah.
right? Protecting drinking water supply, right? Reducing erosion and addressing priority
that's what I meant.
deficiencies.
Yeah,
That's
all
what
that.
you meant?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I meant.
Because I'm not familiar with this
Rip-rap.
with riprap. I'm not familiar with what you're talking about there.
Okay.
But addressing water quality and finding ways to comply with the Clean Water Act and the state Clean Water Revolving Fund, that's what we're doing, yes. And the project estimates are just that. They are estimates. I want to highlight something for you guys. Our stormwater management plan calls for way yonder more, and this is why it's cutting edge, way more than dealing with the specific location where a drainage problem is. We go way beyond that. I'm really excited about the Holly Bush scenario, Steve, because what is anticipated there will include measures that are well beyond just dealing with roadside ditch maintenance. They are designed to capture the water before it ever gets to the problem area, and thereby reduce the problem areas. Each of your projects, by the way, have bits and pieces of that concept tied to it. And that's the kind of thing that we can take to the DEQs, to the EPAs, to the NRCSs of the world, and they will like it because it's not the same old, same old. So just throwing rock in a ditch is never going to fix our problems. We've got to be much more thoughtful about that, much more progressive about that. And oh, by the way, this is the way that the Democrats in Congress want you to spend the money.
Hey, Slay, I know I'm reaching out there a little far on this, but and maybe too early. You only had a few days. Have you seen the infrastructure bill that's coming out?
I have heard and read pieces of it. It keeps shrinking, Daniel.
No.
The most recent iteration is now $1 billion. It started at $2 billion. It shrunk to about $1.5 billion, and now it's at $1 billion. I'm not really sure. Oh, that's big money, by the way.
That's big money,
Don't hear
but-
me
No,
complaining about that.
But it did shrink quickly.
Yeah, and I think I'm saying $1 billion. I mean
You
trillion.
trillion.
I meant trillion.
Trillion.
I meant trillion. Yeah. You see what happens when you start adding zeros like that? It doesn't mean anything. So it started at 2 trillion. It went to 1.5 trillion, and now it's at 1 trillion.
Right.
And I suspect that it's going to be substantial. Well, it'll be lower than that. It'll be between 750 trillion and
Billion. Yeah.
it'll 750 billion. Keep me straight. Okay. So the short answer to your question is, each of these projects would be of the type that we anticipate. There will be some infrastructure funds that get pushed, but when that happens, that is definitely going through agencies, federal agencies.
Not directly
It
to
ain't
county.
coming directly to counties. That's going through federal agencies.
Right.
And so each of the projects that we push forward will need, in my opinion, it will need to line up with the way that federal agencies evaluate those projects. Each of the ones that we put in front of you do. Jay, I think I heard you say that you want some sort of listing, some sort of idea about the totality of projects that would work in District 5.
Well, I mean, I know what ones I want to get done. in there,
I got you.
so.
All right. Well,
And I
we
think
need, we
they
need to
will
compare
qualify.
then. We need to look at the list and get your ideas and make sure that we have those those priorities identified on our list. If they're not on the list, they need
Well,
to
I
go
know
through our
Vernon
vetting.
Jones is on the list.
Yes. That's on the
But
list.
the Pearl ones were not, those along Highway 80, they were not.
Yeah, and
on
I
our list.
think that had to do with the fact the board had already authorized the work, Jay, and so we just weren't conceptualizing that needed to be spent again
Do
with
we
the
ever
ARPA.
decide whether we're doing bridges or culverts there?
They, because of the power lines, it held them back on being able to do what they wanted to do. So, but they're doing box culverts.
That's what I'm saying, we
Yeah,
decided.
They're doing
what-
box
yeah.
culverts.
Wasn't that the lesser way to go?
Yeah, it was. So they wanted to do bridges.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't,
Cause of power lines?
because of power lines.
Yeah, that makes sense, huh? Yeah, okay.
Does anybody have any other questions? That's it. I'm
No.
done.
Nope. You go.
Next steps are this. Y'all need to talk about it, think about it, marinate on it. We need to be
Oh, yeah.
prepared, I think, prepared.
So could you,
That's-
Ryan, you know who the council for Madison is now?
Right. I don't know who's Madison's legal counsel now. Is it Mike Espy still? Mike.
Oh, it is?
He's a board lawyer.
So, could y'all reach out to him and see how they are, they thinking that they gonna be able to spend, 75% of their money on road and bridge?
Yeah.
Because of revenue loss?
Somehow, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're probably they're not focusing on Clean Water Act.
They're not doing Clean Water Act.
Clean Water Act, they're not doing erosion control, flood control.
No.
They probably don't have a countywide stormwater management plan, would be my guess.
I don't know what they do.
More than likely, they don't.
Well, Jay, I talked to some other day, anyway, he's saying that they even got ways, they know, everybody's telling you they got ways they can twist it where you use it here, twist it where you use it here, and we got that figured out how you can do it. So I mean, I don't know, they all will start telling you.
Nobody in the state of Mississippi knows and has figured out exactly how to use the money.
Yeah, one
Nobody.
county's putting it all in a jail. They're spending it to revamp a jail.
Hey, DeSoto County came out and jacked in and bought 10 ambulances.
Yeah, what? They do what?
Went out and bought 10 ambulances. DeSoto County did.
So
Well,
each
do a water
county is gonna take little
different.
bits and pieces of the law and the regulations and try to fit what they wanna do there. We like this piece because to us, it seems to have the kind of visibility to take to the legislature and say, this is what y'all asked us, these are the kinds of things y'all asked us to be involved in and to look to spend the money on.
Well, I think
Transformational
at least
issues.
Submit $50 million worth of packages to the state.
Yeah, what we want to do is to invite them to provide whatever amount of funding Delbert was talking about and has been talking about.
Yeah.
And if that's doubling what we're spending, that's fine. If it's tripling, we'll take it.
Yeah.
We just need to have those conversations, but before we do that,
We gotta have a list.
y'all gotta tell us that y'all are comfortable moving in this direction. Y'all gotta tell us that. I would like to be able for y'all to tell us that on the 16th.
I feel like we've been moving in this direction for 4 years or more. We just hadn't, we've been preparing for something if we could get some money, and now it's here.
But yeah, I think we're gonna miss it if we don't go ahead and put everything, cause say we keep out $5 million, for asphalt. So that's gonna leave us $25 million. So we could get another 50, that's possibly $75 million worth of projects we could submit, So I think we should at least push it as far as we can.
No question,
To
no
see
question.
what they will come in and help us with.
Man, it may cut it short, but yeah, no question.
Let's put some alternates down there and try to get them. I mean, like, I've
I
got
think,
metal meetings.
I think that's where you, I mean, I think that's the ultimate end anyway.
We brought these forward for that purpose. We want to be able to have these strategic conversations. Y'all need to, I'm not telling you what to do. As soon as you guys can get comfortable with what you think you want to do and you're prepared to release us to go have those conversations, we want to have them. I'd love to be able to have them like this
Well,
afternoon.
I mean, I think we're there, we just need to come up with enough projects to cover for the money to cover. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we would do initially is we would go have discussions that are conceptual at the state level as opposed to project specific. We would go have conceptual, is this the type of transformational activity? And just show them basically what we're talking about here, Clean Water Act, DEQ, connections with EPA, the connection with NRCS. Show them all of those connections that we're making and having and how DC is involved in all of this, the Corps, and then ask the state, is this the kind of thing that you were talking about that's transformational in nature? Identify the stormwater management plan as an important piece of that.
Not them.
I agree.
Okay.
We need the list.
Right. I think we need to be involved with that, you know, when we get ready to go.
If I can just, the comment that I'll make about that is, let's get on the same page and make sure we're not at cross purposes.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly.
Okay? We need to go into executive. We got a couple of litigation matters, and can we just say that on the 16th, there will be some sort of formal okay and acknowledgement?
Why can't we just, I mean, I think all of us have indicated that we're on board. Brad?
What he's saying is we need a list.
We need to have a list of projects
Of
and dollars.
additional?
Yeah, I'm thinking that if we're gonna go ask for help, we need to show them what the
Well,
demonstrated
I've already
need
got-
is.
I already know the other one that I would wanna push. Melamine. I mean, we've had that problem, drainage, that would be my other one. But anyhow.
I got something, but I won't.
All right, so we'll come
talk to
back
you
on the
about it if
16th and
it's
ask y'all to give us a
qualified.
formal,
Okay.
all right, 16th.
Okay.
Litigation, I don't know if there's something.
All right.
I'll make a
Motion going to-
executive session.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Jay, need to go into executive session, second by, Steve. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, have a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion to go into
All right,
executive session.
all right. Motion by Brad, second by Daniel. All in favor, say aye. All right.
Whoa.
Who seconded? Daniel? Daniel?
If you want me to, or Janice may have seconded it, I don't know.